Hey guys, today I'm going to do what I've been saying I'll do for a while, and that's a quick rundown, a quick video on the do's and don'ts of flying the Mavic. I keep getting asked it on forums and stuff, and I keep responding, and I keep telling people what the best things to do and don't do are. Not that I'm an authority on this or anything, but things I've learned flying the Mavic over the last little while. So I'll knock that together. We'll go out and we'll do some shooting. First I've got to go get the dog though, because he's got to come with. We'll take him for a walk. We'll shoot some Mavic footage. I'll take some screen grabs and stuff, and we'll put it all together in the edit. See you in a bit. Right, Milo's in the car. I've got all my other bits and pieces. Let's go fly. Right, so first things first. Find somewhere safe to fly. I'm not just talking safe for the drone, I'm talking safe for you and for anyone that may be around, and any animals that may be around, whether they be little dogs like Milo or the wildlife. Got to remember the wildlife was here way before we were, and we're going to be here way after we're finished playing with drones. So make sure you're safe for everyone and everything around you. He knows where he's going, doesn't he? If it's your first flight out or one of your first flights out, I highly recommend finding somewhere that's fairly open, nothing to hit, and has good visual line of sight. Should always try to keep the drone in visual line of sight, not because it's a legal requirement in most countries, but because it's just a good idea. If it runs out of batteries, has a problem, crashes, hits something, if it's in VLOS, you can go and find it. If it is 2 miles away over that way, it's going to be a pain. The next thing is the simple stuff. Make sure you've got the right card for your shooting mode. If you're going to be shooting in 4K, you need a U3 card or greater. If you're flying in an area that's restricted for some reason and stuff, make sure you've got permissions, that sort of stuff. Make sure you have the right equipment with you for anything you need to do, and make sure you do your pre-flight checks. Make sure the drone looks healthy, there's nothing cracked on it, nothing broken, your battery's charged, the propellers look good, the gimbal operates properly, and there's no warnings up on screen. Also, make sure the feet are down, simply because they're the aerials for the drone. So if you don't put them down, you won't get very good signal reception. So just make sure they're down. And make sure you take off the gimbal guard, because you can overload the gimbal motor. ND filters. Shoot with the right ND filter for the time of day, the amount of light, that sort of stuff. It's quite bright out here at the minute, so I'm shooting with an ND16. But if it's not so bright, you might not need an ND16, ND4, ND2, or even no ND filter at all. It's all about the feel you want with the footage and getting the 180 degree to your frame rates. It gives you that nice motion blur that you expect from footage. If you're in an area like I am at the minute, where it's fairly tall grass, it's been cut and everything, and it's not long grass, but it's fairly tall grass, and I have a dog that likes to chase the drone around, then learn to hand launch. It's really not a difficult thing to do, and well worth learning how to do. Milo. Milo, what you doing? When you launch the DJI Go 4 app, make sure there's no updates available for your drone, make sure it says it's connected correctly, and then obviously just tap Go Fly. That'll take you into the flight mode of the app. Here you want to make note of any issues that may be coming up, like on mine right at this moment, because I flew the drone fair way from here last time. It's saying I have a compass error, so tap on the red bar at the top and calibrate your compass. All calibrated. Right, then if you're a first time flyer and you're not flying indoors, wait for a GPS lock. Wait for the ready to fly up at the top to come up in green where you've got a GPS lock. Make sure it says it's updated your home position, because that way, at least if it does go into an emergency situation where it needs to return to home, it'll know where to go. Right, done. Then if you want to hand launch, it really is just as simple as hand flat on the bottom of the drone, keeping it away from all the blades, etc. Tap the launch icon on the screen and then slide to take off. Next thing I recommend is in your settings, go into your settings and change your controller setup. So you want the center point of your yaw and pitch to be smoothed out a bit. It's in drone, advanced settings, and in your gain and in your sensitivity and your EXP. So I have my throttle set to pretty much standard, my rotate left and right, forward and backwards set to 0.10. You also want to change your gimbal sensitivity. I have mine set at 5 and 30. It just makes the gimbal movements a lot smoother. Milo loves a drone. Make sure you're not around too many trees. If it's your first flight, last thing you really want to do is go crashing into trees. And then just get a feel for it. Remember that if the drone's facing the same direction you're facing, controls on your right stick are going to be forward, backwards, left and right. However, if you're facing the other way and you're coming back towards you, controls are reversed, so you just got to remember that. And then it's all about getting a feel for how it flies and stuff. Fly it around, do some stuff, take some shots, see how it feels. You only get better with practice. Keep the aerials on the remote perpendicular to the craft so that you get the best signal you can, and try keep the drone in visual line of sight. I mean, currently I'm 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet out and I can still see it in the sky. It's at a good altitude and it's a nice day, it's bright and there's a bit of background light from the clouds. The other option I would definitely recommend doing if you're in Europe is the FCC mode switch. It's kind of a bit hacky and you need an Android device to do it, but it definitely gives you much better range and, more importantly, much improved signal clarity. It increases the output power of both the remote and the drone up to the American regulations for 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands, rather than the European ranges and power outputs, which are about a third of the power levels. Then I recommend switching off auto exposure, auto camera settings, and switching over to the manual exposure settings. That way you'll be able to get a much better lock to your 180 degree on your shutter speeds. It just makes everything feel less real is the wrong word. It gives it more of a cinematic footage, and it makes it feel more like people expect it to be. If it warns you about home point location because of batteries and stuff, trust it. It knows better than you do, almost certainly. And if it is returning home, make sure you got your return to home sets at the right altitudes, and bring the camera back up to straight ahead so you can see where it is, what it's doing, that sort of thing. I always set that smart button to being return the gimbal back to center, but whatever works best for you. And the other thing to remember is if you push forward on the control stick for forward motion whilst it's in return to home, it'll actually pick up its speed and pitch forward, almost not quite to sports modes, but it'll get it home quicker. Here she comes now. When the drone's back in visual line of sight, there's no need for the return to home. So just knock it out of return to home and then bring it back with your eyes. Remember, just because the drone's got a camera on the screen doesn't mean that your eyesight isn't your best eyesight. Landing her up is exactly the same as takeoff. Hand out flat, full throttle down, and she'll come and land on your hand. And you can see from the flash of battery at the back that we're running short on power. Make sure you stop the recording before you take the battery out. Just stop any sort of corruption. Alright, more on that in a minute, because Milo's bored of watching the drone fly around, so I best take him for his walk. Okay, some other bits and bobs that are worth remembering. If you're flying on a tablet that doesn't have a data connection, it's worth caching the maps offline before you get there, while you've got a Wi-Fi signal. To do that, you just go into the app, go to the offline maps, cache the area you want, and it downloads it to the SD card or to the device. Works on Apple and Android, or it should work on Apple and Android, but there was a problem with one of the recent versions of DJI Go 4 app that didn't work very well on the Apple devices. What else have we got? Yeah, make sure you return to height altitude is always set correctly. You don't want it to returning at 30 feet when you know there's trees around that are 50 feet tall, because it's just going to hit things. The DJI Go 4 app for the Mavic has an awful lot of smart modes. You can do stuff with your hands, make it fly, and it'll track you. You can get it to do all sorts of clever droney shots and small worlds and all the other cool stuff. I'll do a video about that at some point, because there's a whole lot more to them than just this video. So I'll do something around them. Even though they're great, and in a pinch, in situations, they're perfect for doing what you want to do, they shouldn't be relied on. You should learn how to do most of those sorts of moves. Some of them aren't easily possible, but the majority of them, like orbits and boomerangs, things like that, they're all capable of being done manually. So if you know how to do them manually, it proves that your skill is high enough that you can rely on the little modes, and if the drone gets itself into trouble, you can get it out of trouble easily, and you'll know what to do with it if it gets itself into trouble. If you don't know what you're doing and you get into a situation where something's happening out of the drone's ability to look after itself, and you don't know what to do, you're likely going to hit something hard and it's going to break, and it's an expensive toy for it to be broken like that. Milo! Oh great, we're coming up to the water. Milo's a bit of a water baby, so he had a bath last night. Let's just hope he doesn't go diving into the puddles. Milo! And that's about it for the basics, I think. Most of the stuff is fairly self-explanatory. Like I say, be completely aware of your surroundings. Don't fly it over hundreds of people unless you've got permission and insurance. Don't fly it over commercial buildings and stuff like that. The rules in the UK are 50 metres from commercial buildings, 150 metres from personal dwellings, 400 metre ceiling. So even though the drone can only go to 500 metres above takeoff, 400 metres is pretty close to maximum drone's altitude ceiling anyway. So you've got a bit of space if push comes to shove and you need to go higher for some reason, but you really shouldn't need to get anywhere near that height. People say to me that the 20-minute or so flight time on the drone, on the air at least, isn't enough. And yeah, that's probably true, but for most people it's plenty of time. The big problem you've got is if you know what shots you need and want to set up, getting into position and taking the shot, and if you don't get it right first time, having to do 2 or 3 takes at it, that can be where the battery limit starts to come into play. But as a general rule, 20-ish minutes is perfectly okay. The last thing about the Air, everyone complains about its range compared to its big brothers, the Pro and the Inspire, etc. And even though it doesn't have OcuSync, which would be nice, let's be honest, the range on it in FCC mode, it really isn't bad at all. As you saw there, I was flying 4,000 feet away from myself, which is about 3/4 of a mile, something like that, with no signal breakup, no loss, no problems whatsoever. And when I did some footage over the Whitstanwell Festival, I was best part of 2 miles away, no issues whatsoever. And it's all down to the amount of interference around the area. Because it uses the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands on Wi-Fi, then interference is that, it interferes. So if you're flying around built up areas, highly commercial areas, that sort of thing, then you're going to have a lot more problems with range and signal breakup than where I just flew, which was a big field, nothing else around, no Wi-Fi to get in the way, and it works perfectly in those situations. For most people though, a range of 3/4 of a mile, which is what I was just at, is out of VLOS anyway, so technically you're flying illegally. So really there isn't a problem. All these big drones that can go 7 kilometers, 8 kilometers away, they're illegal to fly anyhow. So really, does it make any difference? Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. The Mavic doesn't have lots of colour profiles, but it does have D-Cine-like, and that's as close to log as you're going to get on the Mavic Air. So fly and film in that. Film on all your other cameras in a log format if they've got them. Like on the Canons they've got log, Sonys have got log, etc. Film in log, and then you can colour grade back when you get to Premiere. Just makes life a whole lot easier.